Hi guys, this is Ms. Miner, and this is lesson number 1D. And today what we want to be able to do is solve equations where we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. We call these multi-step equations. Let me just write that down. Multi-step equations. So we have lots of steps to do. That's why they're called multi-step, right? So let's just go over our steps or our procedures. In my class, we were talking about these procedures, and we're going to continue using these. These are kind of the thoughts that go through Ms. Miner's mind whenever I'm solving an equation. These are kind of the procedures that I do as I go through. So the very first thing that I always want to do, we call this share the love, but we are distributing, right? We're going to distribute. We call this share the love because that helps us remember what we're doing, right? And then we want to combine like terms or have a family reunion where everybody with the same last name gets together. Okay. And this step up here, kind of step 1, if you will, this will be step 2, step 3, and step 4, just so that we can reference what we're talking about. This step right here is all of our simplifying that we're going to do. We're trying to get our equation to its most simplified form so that it's easy to work with. The next thing that we're going to do today is we're going to these should maybe say remove one of the x's. So I'm going to have x's on both sides of the equal sign, and I'm going to figure out which one I don't want and get rid of it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. Then we're going to move the number that's not connected, and this was like our hostage situation where the number that's not connected to the variable escapes first. If you were in my class, you kind of will understand this one. But we're moving the number that's not connected to our variable. And remember, this is an addition or a subtraction step. I always use addition or subtraction right there. And then the last one is I'm going to remove the number that is connected to my variable. And this is always a multiply or a divide step right here. Okay, so those are kind of our steps. I'm going to show you how to use these steps to help you solve an equation. And that's the thing about math, right? Is that we're always looking for patterns. And this is just a pattern that helps us solve equations. Okay, so here we go. Here's an equation. You'll notice that it has, I'm going to just change colors here really quick. It has an x on this side of the equal sign. Here's my equal sign, right? It has an x on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start where I normally would. I would start by simplifying this thing. I'm going to see if I need to distribute. So I'm going to look for parentheses, because remember, parentheses tell me that I'm multiplying something. There's no parentheses in this problem. And so I'm good. I can check that box. Okay, we've done that. Now I'm going to look and see if I can combine any like terms. And when I combine like terms, I can only combine like terms over here on this side together, or I could combine any like terms over here on this side of the equation, but I cannot combine like terms across the equal sign. So in this step, I cannot combine across the equal sign. So that might be another note maybe that you want to put in there. But I'm just looking. On this one, I can see over here on this side, I have a 6x. There's my first term. And I have a -4. Those can't be combined because they don't have the same last name. They don't have the same variable, right? And then over on the right-hand side, I have a 4x as my first term, and I have a -8 as my second term. And it's really important that you can see where your terms are in your equation. So in an equation, remember my terms are kind of broken up in between where the signs are. And so I look for the positive and negative signs, and I'm always going to split my terms up right before I get to the next sign. So these are kind of split before I get to that negative sign. That negative sign belongs with the 4, and then over on the right-hand side, the negative sign belongs with the 8. That makes this term in front a positive, and this 6x is a positive. And sometimes it helps us to go in and put those signs in there so that we can see whether or not we're supposed to be adding or subtracting those things. Because the very next step, if I can't combine anything, right, the very next step says, move any of the x's. It should say, I feel like right here, it should say, remove an x. Because what we really want to do is we want to look at this equation and we want to decide which of these x's we want to keep. Do I want to keep the left-hand side or do I want to keep the right-hand side? And it doesn't matter. I just choose whichever one I like better. And so in this case, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to choose to keep the 6 x's because I kind of like to have my x on this side when I get to the end. Right? My goal is to get to the end and have x equals a number. And so I kind of like to keep the x on the right-hand side. It doesn't really matter. You can choose whichever one you want to keep, and then you're going to get rid of the other one. And we use addition and subtraction in order to get rid of one of the x's. So again, this is another addition and subtraction step. We do it just like when we remove the hostage. We do it well, that one's a multiply and divide step, so that's not the same. But we do it the same way that we do when we remove a hostage. All I have to do is say, okay, I want this 4x gone, and right now I'm adding the 4x. It's a positive 4x, if you will, and so I'm going to subtract 4x in order to remove it. Now, the only thing I have to remember is this is an equal sign, and so I have to keep it equal all the time. So if I take 4 x's off of the right-hand side of this equation, I have to take 4 x's off of the left-hand side. And I usually just line it up with my other x that's over here because that's where I can take x's away from, right? And so we're kind of removing a few of those x's, and what that will do is it will get rid of the x's over on this left-hand side. They'll go to 0, right? And so I'm going to total this up now. And this is this part where it says rewrite. See how right under here it says rewrite a bunch of times? This is my rewrite. I'm going to have this go to 0, and all I'm going to have left over on this side is the -8. And then over on this side, the left-hand side of my equation, I'm going to just total this up. And I have 6 x's and I minus 4 x's, so now I have 2 x's left. And then I haven't done anything with this -4 that's over here, so I just drop it down where it belongs. That's my rewrite. I have rewritten my equation, and so now I am only going to work with this equation down here. I don't have to worry about this stuff up here anymore because I've totaled it up. And so then I can just always be working with my most current equation or my most simplified equation from that point. So I always kind of rewrite the equation, and so that I'm always just working from the bottom of my equation, I guess, the bottom of my work, really. Okay, so I just did this step where I removed one of my x's. Now, all I have is a regular old equation, just like we've been solving the last few assignments, and I just do the same thing. I get rid of the hostage, and in Ms. Miner's class, we talked about how if this were a hostage situation, this X would be hanging on to this 2 right there because they're partners. And he would be like, don't leave me yet. And so that's why I call this the hostage, because if this were a hostage situation, the -4 would escape first. it's kind of dumb, but that's what I call it. And so I get rid of my hostage right here using addition and subtraction again. So here's my hostage. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. This should be something that you've been doing now on several homework assignments. And so this part should be very familiar to you. I'm adding 4 to both sides. This is going to go to 0. I'm just going to extend my equals sign down. And then all I have left over here is the 2 x's. -8 plus 4 gives me -4 left over. And then I'm done with this step. So I'm kind of just like checking the boxes as I go along. Ms. Miner is a real list maker. I like to check things off my list. So the last thing that I do is I remove the number that is connected to my variable. And this is always a multiply or a divide step. I always use multiply or divide here because my 2 is multiplying my x right now. So I'm going to use division to get rid of it. These are going to go to 1, and I'm going to be left with just 1x left over on this side. And -4 divided by 2 gives me a -2 left over. And there's my solution. So I just use these procedures in order to solve any equation. And these procedures will work no matter what numbers I have up here, no matter what parentheses or anything else that's going on. I can always use these procedures because math is just patterns, right? And solving an equation, once I see the pattern, then I'm golden because I can solve any equation. Okay, so let's try another equation. Let's just go through this again. We'll check all the boxes. We'll make sure we're doing all the things. All right, so the very first thing that I want to check for is to see if I need to share the love anywhere, if I need to distribute anywhere. And really what I'm looking for is the first thing in my order of operations, which is parentheses. There are no parentheses in this equation, and so that part is done. I don't have anything to distribute. The next thing I'm looking for is any like terms. I want to combine up anything that has the same last name, the same variable. We call that combining like terms. I always abbreviate that CLT. There are no like terms that I can combine. So what I'm looking for is over here on this side. First, I'm going to check and see if I can combine anything over on this side. Then I'm going to check the other side. I'm just looking at the terms on this side or on the right-hand side individually to see if I can simplify those things any more. And in this case, I can't, so that part is done. The next step down says remove. I'm going to just add remove any x's. Well, we have a's in this problem, but it works exactly the same thing. And remember, this is an addition or a subtraction step. I'm going to use addition and subtraction to remove one of my a's. And so I just decide which one that I like to do, and I'll show you that it doesn't matter. This time, let's remove this a that's over on this side. It doesn't matter. I can choose which one I want to get rid of. Right now, remember, I'm using addition and subtraction, and so because this term already has a negative sign in it, or a subtraction sign, I'm going to use addition to get rid of it. I'm going to add 2 a's. Then I have to add 2 a's over to this side because that rebalances or re-equalizes my equation. This is going to go to 0, and I'm going to rewrite my equation or total it up. On this side I have a -9. Sorry, I touched the equals 6 a's plus 2 a's gives me 8 a's, and then I have plus 15. So I'm just rewriting my equation, totaling it up, and seeing what I have left over. Okay, the next step down, we've checked this box. We removed one of our a's. Now we're going to remove the number that is not connected to the variable. So the 8 right now is connected to my variable. So the first one I'm going to remove is the 15. And I always use addition or subtraction again at this step. So I'm going to, since this one is a plus 15, I'm going to use subtraction to get rid of it. That means I have to subtract 15 from the other side in order to rebalance my equation. This is going to go to 0, and 8a is equal to negative 9 minus 15 more. Gives me negative 24. Be careful with this. I see a lot of students who don't think party versus battle right here. Remember, these two are the same sign. And so how many total negatives do I have here? There's 24 total negatives here. So be careful with that. I've seen a lot of students in class getting stuck right there or calculating that incorrectly. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the number that is connected to the variable with multiplication or division. The last step is always my multiplication or division step, and so I'm going to, I like to change colors just to highlight what I'm doing. Divide by 8 on this side, divide by 8 on that side. 8 divided by 8 is 1a left over. And over on this side, I get negative 24 divided by 8 gives me negative 3. And there's my result. And you can see all I did was go down through here and check a bunch of boxes. And it didn't matter that there was different numbers up here. It didn't matter that there was different letters because it's just a pattern. Solving equations is just recognizing the patterns. Okay, so on your assignment today, there's a problem that looks like this. And it says pentagon and triangle are equal to each other. So pentagon and triangle are equal to each other. And then it gives you pictures that look like this, okay? And it wants you to find the length of y. Well, what's awesome about this is I can create an equation because these two things are equal, right? So if I'm looking at this, remember my perimeter means I add up all the sides. So if I add y plus y plus y plus y plus y, right? How many y's have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 y's on this side, and this is equal to this. So I can set up an equation that says 5y's is equal to, and then I come over to my triangle, and remember the perimeter is just adding up all of these things. So I'm taking y plus 2 and adding it to y plus 4. So I'm basically just combining a bunch of, let's just add it, plus y plus 4 plus y plus 6, right? And so I'm basically just combining a bunch of like terms over here. And so how many total y's do I have? I'm just looking now to combine my like terms. I have 3 y's. And then how many total plain numbers do I have over here? 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 6 more is 12. And now I have an equation that I can solve. I can use my steps to go ahead and solve it. So I'm going to do that right now. I'll walk you through this one, and then you'll be able to do your own on your assignment today. The first thing that we wanted to do was make sure that we combined our like terms, share the love, and combine like terms. Well, we already did that. We took care of step 1. We've already simplified it, and we wrote our equation over here. So the next thing that we can do is remove one of the y's, and that's step 2, right? And because this one's already by itself over here on the left-hand side of the equal sign, I'm going to remove this 3y's. And remember, this is always addition or subtraction, so I have to think about this. This is a positive 3y's, so I want to subtract 3y's to get rid of it. That means over here, so I'm going to subtract 3y's. These are going to go to 0, and I'm going to rewrite my equation again. I'm just going to total everything up. So over on this side, I have a 12 left. And on the left-hand side, I have 2 y's. Now, normally here, we would get rid of any hostages, but you'll notice all I have left is 2y. So I can skip step 3 and move right on to step 4. This was my division step. And all I want to do is divide by 2 right here, divide by 2 right here. This is going to go to 0. Sorry, it's going to go to 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so I have 1y left over on that side, and over on this side I have 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And so the length of y is 6. So super easy, just a different way to write an equation, right? I'm telling you that pentagon and triangle are the same. And so the lengths, now I can figure out the lengths of my pentagon here. They're each 6. And that would be like 6 feet or 6 inches or whichever. All right, that's it for today.